Okay, welcome to another edition of Real Estate Investor Radio. And we're sitting in pretty tough times here in South Africa right now through lockdown. We're already in week 6, and I think the markets are feeling it, and particularly in the property market. And our guest today is a gentleman that he's a passionate property investor. He's also runs a real estate company. He's the managing director of this company, and he lives by the success models of Winston Churchill that says success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And I think if we look at where we are today with COVID-19 and that kind of stuff, we need that kind of, because some people are going through failures at the moment. And so I'd like to welcome our special guest. His name is Ryan van Heerden. He heads up Ryan's Realty. So Ryan, first of all, thank you very much for joining us on the show. How are you doing? Are you safe?
Oh, great, Neil. It's great to be here, and it's great to be on the show with you guys.
Fantastic. Let me just kick off, Ryan, and let's just talk a little bit about, the coronavirus, COVID-19, as they call it, but more importantly, the impact of the lockdown. I mean, surely this must have had an impact on your business.
I know it's actually I don't think we've felt the impact yet because it's gonna it's cause and effect, but without a doubt, it's got a massive negative impact on our industry. In fact, we've had to start. If it was just for the month of April, we would have been okay. However, with it being extended almost like indefinitely, because I don't know when the real estate industry, they expect the real estate industry to actually get going again, but not in phase 4 or stage 4, as they call it.
Yes.
So it puts huge pressure. I mean, we've had to start retrenchments on the administrative side. We're busy streamlining all our systems, cutting off all the fat, renegotiating all our contracts in terms of printing and online access and marketing that we've got with our suppliers. So I think it's got a knock-on effect for everybody. But at the same time, we're busy expanding our hiring of qualified agents and experienced interns. So, where there's chaos, there's opportunity, always.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, I understand level 3 is when the real estate industry opens. And I know that we had the deeds office open this week, but it's only partly and it's part staff. So I don't think that really helps your case right now.
No. I mean, one of the things I just felt the need to do something, and we put a petition together on change.org just for real estate agents that they can go and support and sign up for, because we expect that if we can't operate or if we extend this stage 4, that we actually will, well, I believe we need to go to the High Court and get relief from the courts, in fact, with what the government is imposing on us, and denying us the right to actually earn a living. So we can't just lie there, and suck our thumbs. I think we've got to stand up and be counted.
Let's get into the order of business. I mean, how do you see the South African residential sector panning out after lockdown? I mean, we've seen a dramatic cut in interest rate, which is positive, and and there's got to be some similar. But unfortunately, people are not economically operational. They're not. Their businesses are closed.
Well, the interest rate cuts are significant. I mean, it is. I've got 26 loans that I've got. And, 2% times 26 mortgages makes a massive difference in terms of what I have to pay every month.
Sure.
But if we just take it on a simple scale, there are going to be massive job losses. I mean, if I've had to retrench my operation and we were running quite lean as it was, I mean, I don't believe that there's going to be a company not affected in this country.
Yeah.
And so we can expect, I believe there's going to be massive job losses. There's going to be a massive shrinkage of the economy in terms of GDP. But there's also going to be a huge movement of real estate, because it's not like, all the wealth suddenly disappeared off the planet, that it disappeared somewhere else. It's all still there.
Yes.
The reality is it's just shifting. It's shifting to other people. I think there's going to be markets opening up in terms of rental opportunity, because people let's face the harsh reality is that people are going to lose houses. If they lose their house and they're owners, they need to move to a rental apartment or a smaller home. So I think the pricing on the bigger properties is going to slow down, and the pricing on the smaller properties, I think there's going to be a bit of an increase, because that's what people can afford effectively.
Yes, no, absolutely. So, I mean, what kind of timeline would you give this to start seeing a sort of the market, let's say, coming back to normality? I don't want to use that because I think once they lift lockdown, I don't think it's going to be normal again. So, I mean, what is your view on that?
Well, I think, there's always opportunity with real estate. It doesn't matter how good or bad it is. People have to have a place to stay. If I think in terms of timing, I think probably for the next 2 years, there's going to be a subdued market in terms of growth. Right. And we need to be aware of that. I think the country is in for about a 10-year downturn in terms of general, the GDP and the impact. But I think real estate recovers quite quickly, because the bottom line is people keep making babies, and these babies grow up and they need a place to stay. So if we, the reality is, it depends what segment of the market you're in. I think if you're selling large homes in bigger states, well, they're going to move, because people have to get out of the financial burden of a massive home. So if you're in that industry, fantastic. You're going to be picking up bargains. Yes. If you're an estate agent in that industry, well, fantastic, because people are desperate to sell. Yeah. And the same, if you're in a market or rent to buy, or buy market, well, geez, there are going to be incredible opportunities, because if you're buying in the right areas where people can save money, where people can, get to work and inexpensively, it just is more opportunity. So I get excited when there is chaos, because there's always opportunity. You just need to be looking for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. So, I mean, you've been through this before. I mean, I don't know if you recall. It wasn't a long time ago. It was 2000,
just recovered.
2008. Yeah, and I think, we didn't go through the best 10 years. We've had a lot of economic crisis after crisis, as in fact Darby wrote. The economy has said on a number of occasions. Yeah. In South Africa, we're quite resilient people. We kind of battle. And now we've got this lockdown and COVID-19, which is really hit us. So we are resilient. So tell us where you first became involved, because, you've been through ups and downs. So maybe give us a little bit of a rundown on your real estate industry and your investment industries. You mentioned you've got 26 properties. Maybe just tell us how it all started.
Well, interestingly enough, I spent 10 years in the military, which was a whole career on its own. But, I left in 1998. I realized that I was a major at the time, and I realized there was never going to be a General van Heerden. So I thought there's no point in doing something if you can't get to the top. So I happened to be in Mozambique. I love the coast and diving, spearfishing. I like getting in the water. And I was reading a book that somebody suggested called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Right. And I must say that book kind of changed the trajectory of my entire life, because I suddenly realized, I'd had 4 years of study at university. I'd done commercial degree and honors, but it never taught me about wealth. It never taught me about creating assets and how to create wealth. I thought you work hard, you get a degree, you get as good a paycheck as possible, and you do that for 40 years, and hopefully you got a retirement. And I suddenly realized, wait a minute, there's people, that live completely different lives, that live off a different type of money, not earned income, residual income. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea. So how it happened, it kind of happened where I thought, okay, well, let me get into buying property, which I started doing. And the first property I bought, I lived in the cottage and rented out the house. So that's how it started, back in the year 2000. Yeah. And, from there, I actually got involved with Justin Clark, one of my best mates who was the founder of Private Property, the online listing company. And I ended up owning 5 of those franchises up here in Joburg. And then, from that, it just started getting into residential developments. I remember doing our first residential development and doing it for 1% commission. Can you believe it? 1% commission, just so that we could get the experience.
How do you survive on
it? Man, still a lot of houses. But it just got me to understand how the market worked and where the opportunities were, and to just learn the ropes. And it was tough. Built up a good career, and eventually sold my shares in Private Property. I was doing I was a specialist in residential development marketing. And then the markets crashed, and we were quite exposed. We had projects in, when I say we, myself and partners that had invested in the Durban Point, in the redevelopment of the Point area. And boy, we lost our shirts, and it was touch and go that we lost everything. And most of my mates who were very wealthy actually lost everything, because I could service, the few 100,000 a month that I had to service. They couldn't service the millions a month that they needed to service. So it was a big wake-up call. And I hope I actually learned from that experience, because we almost went under my business, and we just survived by the skin of our teeth. So we came out of that only to be hit by this COVID-19, I'd say, farce, because it's a farce pandemic as far as I'm concerned. But in effect, it's actually destroyed the livelihoods of, a large portion of the economy.
Yeah, I think one thing is that the whole world is in this thing together. It's a global problem. It's not just a South African problem. No, so normally we sort of stuck all alone here in South Africa, and we've got our South African problems, which we've had. So
no, without a doubt.
But so certainly, maybe give me some just quick, a few highlights, lowlights during that time.
Okay. Well, highlights were. Actually, the first projects we did in the northern suburbs successfully. We did a number of sectional title and cluster developments. The beauty about that is, if you're in real estate, is that, as you sell developments, you pick up a network, and you find people are flipping properties. So you're helping them buy the properties off plan, and then they want to sell it when it's completed. And I remember, one highlight between Christmas and New Year, when everybody's asleep, I happened to be up in Joburg and sold 5 properties in 5 days, all around the 2 million mark. So that was, a highlight of realizing that, if you're available and you're keen and eager, you know what, it doesn't take rocket science, or it's not rocket science to actually have success in real estate. You just got to be available when most people aren't, and be ready to do work when most people are not willing to do it. And then we've done some really great projects throughout the years on the development side. All basically in Gauteng. We did foray into, as I mentioned, to the Point, but that was a bit of a disaster. But successfully, from the southern suburbs all the way through to Boksburg and the northern suburbs, here Fourways, Sandton, and redevelopment. It's funny, it's about seeing what other people don't see, and that's where the opportunity is. Because if everybody saw the opportunity, it wouldn't be an opportunity. So finding these old buildings, I remember in Rosebank, this old building called Oxford Court, and working with some mates, and just converting it from an old, shabby hotel into a great sectional title project. I mean, buying units there for 400,000 Rand, the same unit today is about 2 million. And just seeing the capital growth, I mean, it provided such opportunity for my family and associates and fellow investors to really create wealth, because, you leveraging the bank's money, and to understand that concept about leverage, where I take a little bit of my money, and I take a lot of the bank's money, and somebody else pays off that asset for me, and I generate a cash flow, which if you refinance, it's a tax-free cash flow that you can generate or benefit. And it was just to understand that and to share the knowledge. I mean, I love sharing my knowledge and helping other people understand it and create their own wealth. I mean, real estate allows people to create wealth. That's why this idea of expropriation is such a disaster, because it's a foundation for wealth in any country. So anyway, I'm quite outspoken on that topic as well.
No, but that's fine. I think that's good. I think, we understand what the fundamentals are of the industry, and if that gets impacted, it does affect confidence and business confidence in the market. So along came Ryan's Realty. So tell us a little bit about that. What is your vision with the company, with Ryan's Realty?
Yeah, what actually happened, I was partnering with another company that I was director of, and the idea was to go more into management. And I'm a terrible manager. I'm a great innovator, and I've got great management people that I employ. But, I was not a manager. I'm more, I like to create, I like to see an opportunity, put the whole project together, and then get other people to run it that are more meticulous.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to do stuff that I really enjoyed doing, which was to work with specific developers that had a good reputation, residential developers, and then put the projects together, find what the market wanted, advise them on that, work with the architects, put the right project together with the right design and aesthetics and ergonomics and all these things that make a great investment, and put these projects together and then bring them to the market. And as that, my experience started getting more experience with this, I found that, we could pretty much put these projects together successfully.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be on my own to do that. I didn't want to be, bound by attending body corporate meetings and all that type of thing, which was the focus of my previous company. So I sold those shares out, and I thought, well, I needed a name. I thought Ryan's kind of R Realty. So, hey, that's the name and that's it. And that's where it began. So we kind of a boutique specialist company that assists real estate investors, and we manage their portfolios. And obviously then from that, we sell and rent on an ongoing basis. So yeah, just it's exciting. Our vision is actually not just the local market, but internationally. But I think you've got a question on that, so
Yeah.
so I can if I must answer that now.
No. Yeah. So I mean, really, what are the projects? You mentioned all these projects and developments that you have on the cards. Maybe just share a little bit of the few of the good ones you got going forward, because I mean, I know with interest rates. It does make it affordable down the line, because we've been wanting interest rate drops for such a long time. Unfortunately, it had to be COVID-19. I know Professor Brian Cantor was saying 2 years ago already we must have interest rate drops, and but it took COVID-19 to drop by two basis points. I mean, it's the lowest since the early 70s. I mean, 47 years.
For 22, I think, in the last 22 years, it's the lowest rate in the last 22 years.
Yeah.
I think, just to take one step back in terms of, what do we see for the future? There's two parts to it. I was always 100% completely gung-ho for South Africa, and I still am. I think there's great opportunities here in South Africa. But the reality is, I mean, the rand has deteriorated significantly against the dollar. In 2008 and 9, it was about 7 or 8 rand to the dollar. Now 19 rand to the dollar, approaching 20 rand to the dollar.
Yeah.
And so I think if you are only earning in rands, yes, you can certainly do that. But boy, is it expensive to do anything outside of South Africa then. Yeah. And I think, my focus has been now twofold. One is in affordable residential developments. And I'll mention a project now that we're busy working on, the base in Ferndale in Randburg, which I think is probably the most exciting project that I've had the opportunity to work on and bring to the market in a long time. So because, my philosophy is that, if you've got an idea and you can take it to an extreme, well, then it'll work. So in other words, if you buy a property and it gives you a 300 Rand a month or 500 Rand a month positive cash flow after you pay the bond and the rates and taxes and the levies and that type of thing. Well, if you took that same idea and multiplied it by 50, well, then you'd have, a whole lot more cash flow coming in, 25,000 a month coming in type of thing. And you'd own a massive amount of assets. I think the biggest mistake people make is that they buy with this massive shortfall on their investment, and they can't afford to buy anything else because they've got to cover this massive shortfall every month in terms of the cash flow. Yeah. So the base project is called the base.joburg. You can look at it online or go into ryansrealty.co. And it's just look under featured developments. It'll be quite prominent. And the beauty about this project is, it's cash flow positive from day one. Yeah. So buying a sectional title project is fantastic because, especially if it's a high rise, because you secure it at today's prices. And we're looking, this will only be completed a 6-story building right there near the SARS building in Randburg, just off Hill Street. Right. We're talking 204 units, 6 stories. There's 2 wings, a north and a south wing. Great finishes, all 1-beds, high tech. Really, it's going to be smart home ready, keyless entry, low energy, everything that we could think of to make it cost effective and a great investment product. So I've got a couple of these units that I've secured myself, because from day one, especially with the current interest rates.
Yes.
We're starting from 549 for, there's no transfer costs, it's off plan.
Yeah.
And the beauty is the rentals will be around 6,000 a month. At the current interest rates on a 100% loan, you're talking 4,900 Rand bond payment a month.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
the levies at around 650 and rates at about 250 or so, you still turn out positive cash flow from day one that you buy it.
Wow.
So it's not often you can get a combination of a great area and positive cash flow. That's a very, very unique opportunity.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that particular project, and I'd love people to just go and check it out themselves, thebase.joburg or on Ryan's Realty website. And the other thing I'm really excited about is what we're doing in the United States. I started doing research a few years ago on opportunities in the United States. So I went over with some mates of mine to take a look at opportunities, and I thought, it's impossible to actually make money here because one is the interest rates are so low, and the growth is so slow. You know, you're talking about 4% growth, and the interest rates, I mean, nothing. You don't get anything with the interest rates. So you can't. It was really, I'd say, it was kind of like dull, I suppose.
Right.
But I started doing some research in terms of where the trends were, and then I started getting excited because there are 10,000 people a day in America turning 60.
Wow.
And there's 4,000 people a day in America turning 80.
Wow.
Now, let's face it, in South Africa, just think about a normal family that's parents or grandparents are getting elderly. You'll give up certain things because of the economy, but you're not going to let your grandparents sleep on the street. You're not going to let your parents. It's not like a holiday home. Holiday homes are nice to have. And if you've got the money, buy a holiday home. But you're certainly not going to have a holiday home at the expense of your parents. And I realized that, that is a market trend. The biggest trend in history in real estate is the retirement of the baby boomers. And I started doing some serious research on this and realized what the financial implications of that were. The baby boomers are retiring over the next about 25 years from the, these are people that were born after World War II to the kind of early 60s type of thing. There was a huge amount of people. And these are people that grew up saving their money, investing in retirement funds, paying off their homes, not getting into massive debt like the generation X and Y and Z or whatever we've got today. They were conservative. And these are people who are selling out their homes, moving into a assisted living facility, either a larger one or a residential one. And I did the numbers on this. Let me give you a quick number. A residential assisted living home, like a 5-bedroom home that's converted. Now, we've done a whole lot of research in putting networks together, how to do this, all the compliance. It's not simple, but here are the numbers. A person will stay in a home, these are in their mid-80s, at a minimum cost of about $4,500 per month, per person. So if you work that out, if there's 6 people living in a home like that, the basic figures are $27,000 a month turnover on a home like that. You convert that back to rands, it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So obviously there's expensive, you're netting about, say, $12,000 a month on a home like that, but good grief. This is an opportunity for South Africans, for example, if they have in excess of, say, $20,000 or $30,000 to buy into projects like this, get money into America, secure their retirement in a currency that is not dropping 30% in the last 3 months against the dollar.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm very excited about what's happening there and what we're doing. We're acquiring property right now. We're busy converting and so I'll be traveling a bit between the States and South Africa, getting things set up and offering investors the opportunity in projects like that.
Great, Ryan. I don't know whether you're going to be traveling this year because we've got to wait for the airline to take off.
I'll have to take a canoe.
Yeah. So Ryan, just bringing you back to South Africa and specifically, let's talk about the base because, you're an investor yourself. And it's obviously, you don't buy one property, you buy two, sometimes you buy three, even more,
Multiple. Absolutely.
And now they've got the Section 13 sex, as they call it.
Can you believe they called it? I can't believe they called it that.
Oh,
And
no,
I tell people it's 13.6. They think I'm being funny.
So maybe just share us a little bit about what is it? I mean, what is the sexy tax benefit for property investors? Because if they want to buy more than one, maybe to share that with the
yeah,
public.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting that the whole thing. The government wants to incentivize certain. It's kind of like parents. If you bring up your kids, you praise them, and then they'll keep on doing the thing that you praise. And if they get a smack or a spank or whatever, then they stop doing the things that you don't want them to do. So the government has been quite clever. They want to create more rental stock for the market, for people to be able to rent. So they've incentivized property investors with this Section 13.6 of the Income Tax Act. So the qualifying criteria, it's very simple. There's 4 things that for you to be able to get this benefit, and I'll just run through it briefly. One is that the unit has to be new and unused, and this is in detail on our website, on Ryan's Realty website, in the know button. Just click in the know, and then the article is there to explain it in detail. But if you're an investor, you must the unit that you buy to benefit from this benefit, this tax rebate, it must be new and unused. So you must buy it direct from a developer. Okay, and this is from 2010. So you could have bought it, 10 years ago, basically, and you could actually start getting a benefit from that immediately. I'll explain how. The unit must be solely for the trade of the taxpayer. So it must be a rental unit. You can't move into it yourself. And thirdly, the taxpayer, it must be a single entity. So in other words, you've got to have a total of 5 of these rental units to qualify. You can't have 3 in your personal name and 2 in the name of a trust. You've got to have all 5 in the trust or all 5 in your name as rental units that you bought directly from a developer. Okay. So they don't have to be purchased at once. But you could have 3 units that you bought 3 years ago. You buy 2 in the base, and you have now 5 units, and that qualifies you. And obviously, the 4th thing, it must be in South Africa. All right. So let me give you an example of the numbers here. It's quite fascinating. So say you buy 5 units at the base, let's say around 600,000. I've just given a round figure because it makes my numbers easy. So you'd have bought 3 million rands worth of real estate, 5 units at 600,000. SARS will allow you 55% of the acquisition cost as an allowance against your taxable income. So basically, of the 3 million rand that you've put down to buy it, and obviously you're using bank's money, if you like, or you can buy it cash, it's up to you. 55%, which is 1.65 million, is the amount that SARS will allow you as a tax deduction over 20 years. So effectively, this total is 82,500 per annum for 20 years. That is the amount that SARS will allow you to deduct, 82,000 per annum. But obviously, it depends on your marginal tax rate. So you're at the 45% tax rate. More than likely, you will be if you're an investor. Then basically, 37,000 rand is the tax saving every year that you will get on your properties for 20 years. So in other words, you set that off against the income that you make, and it actually subsidizes your payments on the property, which is fantastic. I mean, this is absolutely, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So there seems to be a lot of incentives and, and there's a lot of opportunities. It's just that, we just don't seem to have the kind of liquidity. And I think, with the banks being under pressure and people, really struggling to pay off their current loans as a result of lockdown and COVID-19, the opportunities are,
They absolutely are. I think also, let's just face it, the banks have to lend money. If they're not lending money, they aren't making money. So I think, as long as you can show, and, we've got experts in the industry, in the bond origination side that are really good at showing the maximum cash flow that you've got. Your rental income can count as cash flow. We can work out formulas to assist investors as far as possible. Investors still can get 100% loan if the cash flow allows it, which is fascinating because you can own multiple properties and still get 100% loan from the bank. So I think you've got to take action. We're talking, it's very low risk if you're buying, more entry-level type of properties. I think it's higher risk the more expensive the properties are that you buy, obviously, because any, month that you don't have a tenant, well, you can suffer quite a significant, setback or shortfall on what you owe. So I think you've got to use common sense,
Sure.
but you've got to act as well. If the numbers are good and you've done your research, I mean, then it's simply a matter of, hey, well, 18 months from now, the question is, will people need a place to stay? Well, yes, obviously.
Sure.
Is there a demand for people to rent around the 6,000 Rand a month mark? Absolutely. Can people afford to rent in that market? Well, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's just, you've got to look and see what's available. I'd love for people to take our project, compare it with anything else available right now in Joburg and the northern suburbs, and I'd be very surprised if anybody can come close to what we're offering on this project.
Fantastic. So just turning the corner a little bit, what do you think the impact is going to be of prop tech adoption, which will have on the real estate sector, number one, and are you adopting that in your business? I mean, is that something you're looking at?
Sure. Well, I think, Neil, at the bottom line is, high tech will always need high touch. And that's, industries don't change because technology changes them. Industries change because the old way of doing things becomes obsolete. And you can't cling to what is no longer working. You think about the Virgin and, controlled the record industry for decades. But, when people started realizing they can, don't have to buy an entire album on their little iPods or iPhones or whatever it was, that converted to a digital format. It wasn't, the change was people want a choice. And that's why the industry changed. You didn't have to buy an entire album and carry a whole bunch of CDs around with you. You could simply plug in to a digital format and get exactly what you want. So I think the big thing about prop tech is that absolutely it's going to change the industry. However, it's about meeting customer needs. So as technology is always going to impact our industry, so you can either change willingly and adapt, or be changed by an inevitable force, which maybe not so willingly, or you'll go out of business. But I mean, the bottom line is people still want to deal with people. People still needed to be guided through a process, whether they are renting and buying. They still need somebody to give them comfort in terms of, I mean, this, when it comes to real estate, it's not like buying, a song for, $1 or $2.
Sure.
It's investing most of your life savings into an asset that hopefully is going to give you some security, decades down the line. So make no mistake, I believe, yes, prop tech is definitely going to impact the industry, but I don't think you can really replace a really good qualified agent that knows what they're talking about and that can guide somebody through the process. Because it's not just, especially in South Africa, oh my goodness, the hoops you have to jump through and the costs involved and the red tape involved and acquiring finance here. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, we're a third world country with so much red tape and so much government,
control.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it makes it as difficult as possible for people just to do a simple transaction. The legal documentation you sign here compared to what we sign in the States, the entire process, the cost involved are prohibitive. So, it helps to have somebody that knows what they're doing, because it can save you a lot of money and time and frustration. So absolutely, there's great innovative stuff coming onto the market, but I still, personally don't, you can't discount or take away the value of good quality agents and property managers.
Yeah, it seemed that we recently had a digitalization of real estate summit, and it seemed that tech needs agents and agents need tech, and it's kind of the one can't live without each other, so they kind of have to live symbiotically together.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what came out. So Ryan, I just think in closing, I want you to share some of, say, if you can give us, say, your top 8 real estate investment tips for investors and potential buyers of real estate, and maybe leave as a takeaway, because you are an investor and you've been an investor for a number of years and you've been through ups and downs. So maybe you could share some investment tips for people in closing.
Certainly. I've actually got 7.
Okay, great. Okay, well, that's fine.
But
I mean, you can
we'll
always
do the
have one
7.
more if you
Okay.
like.
A nice round number. Okay, so I think firstly, you need to be clear on your strategy. I was thinking about that because one is, are you into just flipping properties to make some cash and looking for the next one to flip, which kind of feels a bit like gambling to me until the markets turn, or are you interested in long-term, solid residual cash flow? I think, both these are very different approaches depending on what your strategy is. Are you interested in residential, commercial? Are you going to refurb? What is your plan? So I think the big thing is that you need to sit down and, if you're working with your wife or you're working with a group of, like-minded investor team, you need to get clear on what it is that you want to achieve and write it down so that you don't get distracted. I mean, it's, the shiny object syndrome. You can be busy going along a path and, this opportunity flashes up to your right, and then you leave what you're doing and dash off in another direction, which is just, it just slows everything down. And I think you waste a lot of time and energy and money, because once you commit resources in real estate, it's not like committing a few grand. You're committing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even way more, millions. So you can't, jump after every opportunity. So I think step 1, be very clear on what you want to do.
Right.
Then step 2 is you need to do proper research. And I think just in terms of the mindset, you will only create the wealth that to the extent that you have grown personally to handle it and to, be able to, in other words, you need the mindset of wealthy people. And that's why, I would recommend for everybody just to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It just, what the rich teach their kids that the poor and middle class don't. Right. And just that simple thing was a shift in my thinking, 20 years ago. I've read, most of Kiyosaki's books. Some are, agree with 100%. Some, you take what's relevant for you. Yeah. There's no, one solution fits all. Sure. And there's some great material out there, but, I'd say that's a great start. And like I said, you have to grow yourself to grow and keep up with the wealth that you're going to create. So you can't have a poverty mindset and think you're going to create wealth, because it's just going to pull you back to where you are. So that's, sure. I think, what's important. And then, you need to run your numbers because I kind of wing things a lot because I've got, some experience now. But it really does help to sit down and run your numbers, run out exactly what your expenses are going to be, and then add another 50%, by the way, and then work out what your income is going to be and take off 30% of that. And then you'll get pretty accurate figures, in fact. And it's got to work on paper first. Yeah. And then visit the site personally. I remember I was getting quite good at real estate, right before the markets crashed and that. And, I was looking at cash flow positive properties in the Joburg CBD. I've got about a dozen properties there, some exceptionally good properties, and a few that I tell you now aged me way before my time. There's one particular property that I bought based on an agent's referral. I just took the agent's numbers, by the way. Trust is earned. You don't just trust everybody because they happen to have a nice haircut and a smile. So anyway, I won't work with that agent again. But I bought a property that I promise you, if I do take my entire nightmare experiences in property over 10 years, that would be about 70% of my nightmare experiences. So I bought this property. The numbers looked fine. I didn't visit the site because I was very busy and important. And a few months later, about 6 months later, my rent's coming in. I'm not too worried about it. I get a call that, okay, well, there's no electricity at this building. So I go for the first time with my mace spray and my taser into the middle of, Maria. And, I see this building, and oh my oath, I almost fell on my back. It was a disaster. There was nobody corporate. It was half hijacked. There was an outstanding bill of $250,000 in terms of unpaid electricity and rates and that type of thing. And the council had just disconnected services to the entire building. Wow. There were leaks everywhere. It was just a complete nightmare. And I thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? So I actually had to, and I don't even like doing this, I eventually had to form a body corporate, become the chairman of the body corporate, institute just about martial law in this building in terms of trying to get the hijackers out and get decent people in and protect the interests of the owners. Oh my goodness. It took me thousands of hours for very little money to eventually, I mean, we couldn't even get insurance on the building, so the banks wouldn't lend money on this thing. I bought when the banks were just giving money away. Now I couldn't sell the property because we didn't have insurance. All these things are called experience. And oh my goodness, it's good to have an agent that knows these things. So when you're looking for a property, ask your agent the questions that you need to know, and they need to be able to answer it. They need to know their numbers. They need to know the rent to value ratio. They need to know what here's a good thing when you buy a sectional type of property, make sure you get the financials of the building. I didn't even worry about that. Oh my goodness. If I'd seen the financials, it would have taken about 3 seconds to decide this was a bad buy. So, there's so many things that if you want to be an investor, there are pros and cons. And you need to surround yourself with like-minded people who've been through the mill and who've got experience. Because there's only 2 ways you can get experience in life. One is by your own experience, you suffer, or by other people's mistakes. And I prefer other people's mistakes. Trust me, it's a better cost-effective way of gaining experience. So so run your numbers and visit the property. The fourth thing I mentioned here is you need to know all your costs. I mentioned that briefly earlier.
Yes, you did.
But you can get really surprised if you don't do your numbers, especially when it comes to things like your transfer costs, the bond costs, the bank administrative costs, the legal costs, additional transfer and bond legal costs, the VAT implications. Oh, good grief. If you want to go lose money fast, don't take into account VAT when it's applicable. So just things like that, and write it down. And obviously your agent can help you with this and assist you to make sure, so that you don't think you're making money or you got a positive cash flow, but you haven't taken into the monthly expenses of your utilities that weren't included, for example, or your levies and special levies, or your rates that you're responsible for, or anything else that comes up that you didn't take into account. So that's kind of really, really important there. Then the fifth thing I said is get help.
Yes.
Like I said, experience is expensive if you have to do it yourself. So get good agents that have got, it always amazes me when I speak to real estate agents and they don't own investment properties. I mean, good grief. We're in the market.
Surprising, isn't it?
There's so much. Yeah, exactly. So find agents and that have got experience in the industry, that are investors, that can guide you through the process, because they can help you place good. When I find a good agent, I still use agents myself, because I just operate my business. But if I'm looking for something, I find a good agent, and I don't cut their commission. I actually give them more commission, because then they'll find me the better deals first. And that's an interesting thing, because let's face it, if someone's negotiating your commission down, are you going to give them the best deals? Well, of course not. You make less money. So I actually offer agents more money, but then they must give me a first option on the best opportunities that come their way. And I find that works really well. Good agents will get you good tenants at the best prices. And on setting, you need to use other people's expertise and advice. And the same goes for getting a good team around you, like a good accountant. I've got an expensive accountant. I moan every year when I look at how much I've paid him, but I celebrate and buy champagne every year when he shows me how much he recovered in terms of the tax benefits because of his knowledge and experience. The same goes for a good lawyer. You need a good lawyer to assist you in terms of your contracts. So if you don't have a brilliant agent, you need a good lawyer that can help you on the legal side, because a good lawyer that knows his stuff and can assist you with evictions and can assist you with the simple legal implications of buying property. Oh my goodness, that can save you a lot of money.
Sure.
And I've discovered that cheap can be very, very costly. Absolutely. So I don't go for cheap. And, when somebody offers you massive discounts, I'm always nervous about that, because why are they doing that? So that was number 5. Number 6, if an idea is good, you need to take it to the extreme. And if it's still good, then you go for it. And that's the thing we mentioned earlier. If you're buying a property and it gives you a little bit of cash flow, positive money after all your expenses, times that by 50 and it becomes really good. If you've got a property that's giving you, say, 1,000 Rand negative cash flow, well, times that by 50 and you're sitting with a 50,000 a month shortfall. So it just helps to sometimes think a little bit out of the box, take things to the extreme, and, get advice. Don't just sit there. My wife is a great guys, husbands, I'm telling you now, listen to your wives. It's amazing. My wife doesn't know property, but that sixth sense of hers is unbelievable. Every time I've listened to it, I made money. When I don't listen to it, I pay for it.
Well, she's your advisor, isn't she, Ryan?
Exactly. Okay, the last thing I mentioned here is that when something is good, you actually need to take action. I remember 20 years ago chatting with my mates that also left the military with me about wanting to make money and standing around a bar and, oh, well, residual income and this and that. And, 20 years later, they're still talking. We've acquired, dozens of properties, some commercial stuff. And we've just built on and made lots of mistakes. Oh my goodness. We could have a whole nother podcast on all the mistakes I've made in 20 years. And that'll be, you can bring your tissues and we can all cry about that. But the reality is I just started. I just decided to take the first step. The first step for me was getting a letter from my dad that I actually earned money. He had a business and I didn't have a job, leaving the military. And I bought my first property based on that letter. Then I, thought, well, I can't afford the property, but I can stay in the cottage and rent the house out. And you know what? Suck it up. How do you don't, just suddenly get wealthy because, that's the way it is. You've got to build it up. Yeah. And there was some capital growth. I bought the next property, used that equity to buy more. And, that's how it started. So there's, around 60 odd tenants that pay me rental every month. Well, hopefully with the current economy.
The current environment, yeah.
Yeah, the current environment. And there's numbers that you can work to, ratios that you can work to. But the bottom line is that you have to take action. You can't sit there talking about it for the next 20 years. The best time to buy property was yesterday, and that's the reality of it. Because, 5 years from now, it doesn't matter what happens, there's going to be more money, more wealth, and properties will be more expensive. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it's a journey, and I love the journey, and I love helping other people go on it.
Fantastic. Ryan, I just absolutely love your passion. It's wonderful chatting to you. And I think we're going to have to arrange some further discussions down the line, specifically for investors. I think you've got a lot of experience. I mean, I identify with you 100%. I've pretty much been much of the same that you have. And, I kind of like giggle to myself and I think, wow, here's a guy who can teach somebody who's an aspiring investor so much. And it's wonderful chatting to you. So Ryan, just share your contact details, and if anyone gets hold of you.
Sure. I mean, the simplest is just to go to ryansrealty.co.za, and they can pop me a mail or just pop a mail to my ops manager, and she'll get it through to me. We've got some great articles up there, stuff that I really enjoy writing for Real Estate Investor Mag, your mag. I mean, I love associating with you guys and with your audience and your subscriber base. And my cell number, they're welcome to send me a WhatsApp. In fact, probably that's a better idea. Send me a WhatsApp on my cell. It's 082-567-0735. That's Ryan at 082-567-0735. But all my details are on the website, and we love to help people create wealth and move forward. So we really appreciate the opportunity, Neale. Yes. It's great to catch up with you again.
Absolutely, Ryan. It's wonderful chatting, and we will be in touch soon and to share some of those other war stories with the tissues. But it's wonderful chatting with you, and please stay safe during COVID and through lockdown. And we will chat soon. Thank you. Thank you very much,
Fantastic.
Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks, Neale. Thanks so much.